We've decided you're not really family anymore, Grace. The words hit me like ice water while I sat in that overpriced bistro downtown, watching my stepdaughter Claire twirl her engagement ring like it was some kind of weapon. I just nodded. Smiled even. But when I got home and canceled their wedding venue deposit and stopped covering Ryan's business loan payments, suddenly my phone wouldn't stop ringing. Before we dive deeper into this story, make sure to hit that subscribe button and let me know in the comments where you're listening from. These stories reach people all over the world, and I love hearing from you. Let me back up. Let me tell you how I became the invisible ATM for a family that forgot I was human. 3 years ago, when my husband Michael died suddenly from a stroke, I thought I knew what grief looked like. I was 58, sitting in our craftsman-style house in Portland, surrounded by 30 years of memories and wondering what the hell I was supposed to do next. Ryan was 26 then, Michael's son from his first marriage, and Claire was his live-in girlfriend who'd been planning their future with the precision of a military strategist. "Grace, you shouldn't stay in this house alone," Ryan had said, perched on the edge of my couch like he was afraid to get too comfortable. "It's too big, too many memories. Claire and I have been looking at condos, but with the housing market." I knew what was coming. I'd seen that look before, that mixture of concern and calculation that people get when they're about to ask you for something that benefits them more than you. "We could help each other out," Claire added, her voice honey-sweet. "You could downsize to something more manageable, and we could use your equity to secure our future." Michael would have wanted Ryan to have stability, right? Michael. They always brought up Michael when they wanted something. So I did it. I sold the house Michael and I had renovated together, room by room, year by year. I handed over $200,000 to Ryan and Claire for their down payment and moved into a one-bedroom apartment across town. "It's temporary," I told myself. "Just until I figure things out." But temporary became permanent. And figure things out became, well, let me tell you what it became. The first request came 6 weeks after the house sale. Ryan's catering business, the one he'd been trying to get off the ground since college, needed equipment. "Just $15,000, Grace. It's an investment in our future. I'll pay you back as soon as we start turning a profit." I wrote the check. Then Claire needed help with wedding planning. Venues are so expensive these days. "Could you cover the deposit?" $25,000, just until my inheritance from grandmother comes through." I transferred the money. Then Ryan's business needed a commercial kitchen space. "The lease requires 6 months up front, Grace. $30,000. This is it, this is what will make us successful." I emptied another chunk of my retirement account. The pattern was always the same. Always framed as temporary. Always presented as an investment in their future. Always with the unspoken assumption that I had plenty, that Michael's life insurance had set me up for life. What they didn't know, what I never told them, was that Michael's life insurance barely covered his medical bills and funeral expenses. What I was giving them was coming directly from my retirement savings, the modest 401k I'd built over 20 years as a high school librarian. Every check I wrote brought me closer to having nothing left. But I kept writing them. You want to know why? Because every time I hesitated, Claire would get this look. This patient, long-suffering expression that said, "We're doing you a favor by letting you be part of our lives." And Ryan. Ryan would mention Michael. How proud he'd be. How he'd want me to help his son succeed. So I became their silent bank. The emergency fund they could tap whenever life got expensive. And life, apparently, was always expensive. Claire needed a new car because hers was unreliable. Actually, it was 3 years old and perfectly fine, but it wasn't the BMW she wanted. $28,000. Ryan's business needed marketing materials, professional photography, a website redesign. $12,000. Claire's wedding dress had to come from this exclusive boutique in Seattle. $4,000. The engagement party at that trendy restaurant downtown. 8,000. Each time, I told myself it was the last time. Each time, I found another reason to say yes. And each time, they drifted a little further away from me, like I was a distant relative they felt obligated to include occasionally rather than the woman who was funding their dreams. The invitations to dinner became less frequent. The phone calls stopped unless they needed something. When I did see them, conversation felt stilted, like they were humoring an old lady who didn't quite understand how the modern world worked. "Grace, you know we love you," Claire would say, usually right before asking for money. "You're like a mother to me." Like a mother. Not a mother. Like one. The breaking point came last month. I was sitting in Café Nero, you know, that little place on Division, having coffee with my neighbor Susan when I saw them. Ryan and Claire, at a corner table with another young couple, laughing over champagne and what looked like wedding planning materials spread across their table. I almost went over to say hello. Almost. But then I heard Claire's voice carrying across the cafe, "Ryan's stepmother is sweet, but she's kind of intense about being involved in everything. We're trying to keep the wedding planning to immediate family only, you know? She'd want to have opinions about every little detail." Stepmother. Not Grace. Not even stepmom. Stepmother. Like I was some character from a fairy tale. Ryan laughed. "Yeah, she means well, but sometimes you need boundaries. We're adults, we can handle our own lives." Handle their own lives. With my money. I left without finishing my coffee. That night, I sat in my tiny apartment, the apartment I was living in because I'd given them my house money, and opened my laptop. I pulled up my bank statements, my retirement account balances, the spreadsheet I'd been avoiding for months. The numbers were worse than I'd thought. In 3 years, I'd given Ryan and Claire over $340,000. My retirement savings were down to less than $150,000. At the rate they were borrowing, and never repaying, I'd be completely broke in less than 5 years. I was funding a lifestyle for people who thought I was intense for wanting to be part of their lives. That's when I made the decision that would change everything. I called my financial advisor the next morning. "Janet, I need to stop all automatic transfers to Ryan's accounts, effective immediately." "Grace, are you sure? Didn't you set up those transfers to help with their business expenses?" "I did. And now I'm stopping them. Is everything okay?" I looked around my cramped apartment, thought about the house I'd given up, the retirement I was sacrificing for people who couldn't even use my name in public. Everything's fine. Actually, everything's about to be better than fine. The first call came exactly 2 days later. "Grace, there's been some kind of mistake with the payment for the wedding venue. They're saying the deposit bounced. Can you call the bank and sort this out?" Ryan's voice was tight with panic, but not once did he ask if I was okay. Not once did he consider that maybe it wasn't a mistake. "There's no mistake," I said quietly. "I canceled the payment." Silence. "Then, what do you mean you canceled it?" "I mean I'm not paying for your wedding venue, Ryan. Or anything else. But we're counting on that money, Grace. We've made commitments. Claire's parents are flying in from Boston, we've sent save the dates. Then you'll need to figure out how to honor those commitments with your own money." "Our own money?" "Grace, you know the business is still getting established. We can't just." "Then maybe you should have established it with your own capital instead of mine." The words came out sharper than I'd intended, but they felt good. They felt true. "Is this about the wedding planning? Because if you want to be more involved." "This isn't about involvement, Ryan. This is about the fact that I've given you over $300,000 in 3 years, and in return, I've been gradually pushed to the margins of your life." Another silence. Longer this time. 300,000? His voice was small. "Grace, I had no idea it was that much." "Of course you didn't. Because you never asked." You just took. He hung up without saying goodbye. Claire called an hour later. Grace, what Ryan told me can't be true. About you cutting us off. We're family. Am I? Because yesterday at Cafe Nero, you referred to me as Ryan's stepmother like I was some stranger you tolerate out of obligation. I heard her sharp intake of breath. She hadn't realized I was there. Grace, that's not, you're taking that out of context. Am I? When was the last time you called me just to talk, Claire? When was the last time you invited me over for dinner without needing something? When was the last time you treated me like family instead of like a bank account with feelings? That's not fair. Fair? I laughed, and it came out bitter. Let's talk about fair. Is it fair that I've funded your entire lifestyle while living in a one-bedroom apartment because I gave you my house money? Is it fair that I'm depleting my retirement savings to pay for your dream wedding while you complain about me being intense for wanting to be included? We never asked you to sacrifice. You never asked me anything, Claire. You just assumed. You assumed I had endless money. You assumed I'd always say yes. You assumed I'd be grateful for the privilege of bankrolling your life while being kept at arm's length. The conversation ended with her hanging up on me. But I wasn't done. I spent the next week taking back control of my life. I moved my retirement savings to new accounts they couldn't access. I canceled the credit card I'd given Ryan for business emergencies. I called the wedding planner and removed my name from all contracts. For the first time in 3 years, I felt like I could breathe. The phone calls became more desperate after that. Voice messages that started apologetic and ended angry. Text messages that blamed me for destroying their future. Friends of theirs calling to tell me I was being unreasonable and cruel. But you know what? I started sleeping better than I had in years. A week later, I got an unexpected visitor. My elderly neighbor Mrs. Chin knocked on my door with a plate of her famous dumplings and a concerned expression. Grace, dear, are you all right? I saw that young man yelling outside your building yesterday. I invited her in, made tea, and found myself telling her everything. The whole story poured out, the money, the gradual exclusion, the cafe incident, my decision to stop funding their lifestyle. Mrs. Chen listened without judgment, nodding occasionally, making sympathetic sounds in all the right places. You know, she said finally, my grandmother used to say that when you pay for everything, people stop valuing anything. Including you. That night, I made a decision that surprised even me. I called a realtor. I'm looking for a small house, I told her. Something with a garden. Something that feels like home. Budget range? I thought about what was left of my retirement savings, what I could afford if I was smart about it, if I stopped bleeding money to people who didn't appreciate the sacrifice. Something modest. But mine. 3 weeks later, I found it. A tiny craftsman bungalow in southeast Portland, 20 minutes from downtown. It needed work, the kitchen was from the 80s, the bathroom needed updating, the backyard was overgrown, but it had good bones. It had character. It had potential. Most importantly, it felt like a place I could rebuild my life. The day I got the keys, I sat on the front porch and called my sister in Denver. Lisa, you'll never guess what I did. Knowing you, Grace, I probably won't. What's up? I told her everything. The whole 3-year saga of being Ryan and Claire's secret ATM, the cafe incident, my decision to cut them off, the new house I'd just bought. Jesus, Grace. $300,000? And they never even thanked you? Oh, they thanked me. Every time they needed more money. That's not thanks, honey. That's manipulation. Lisa was quiet for a moment, then said, you know what I think? I think Michael would be proud of you for finally standing up for yourself. For the first time in months, I cried. Not from sadness, but from relief. The angry messages continued for another few weeks, then gradually tapered off. Ryan sent one final email. I hope you're happy with what you've done. You've destroyed our relationship over money. I wrote back, I didn't destroy our relationship over money, Ryan. I discovered that money was our only relationship. I never heard from him again. But here's the thing, and this is the part that might surprise you, I wasn't bitter. I wasn't angry anymore. I was free. Free to have coffee with Mrs. Chen every Thursday morning without feeling guilty about the money I wasn't sending to Ryan's business. Free to buy myself a new dress without calculating whether I could afford it after covering Claire's wedding expenses. Free to plan a future that was actually mine. I started a small garden in my backyard. Tomatoes, herbs, flowers that bloomed just because they were beautiful, not because they served any practical purpose. I joined a book club at the local library. I took a watercolor painting class at the community college. I started living like someone who mattered. 6 months after I bought the house, I got a card in the mail. No return address, but I recognized the handwriting immediately. Grace, it said. We got married last month. Small ceremony, just family. I wanted you to know that we're okay. The business is finally profitable. We moved to a smaller place, but it's ours. I'm sorry it took me so long to understand what you were trying to teach us. I hope you're happy in your new house. Love, Ryan. P.S. Claire says hello and that she's sorry too. I put the card on my refrigerator, right next to a photo of my garden in full bloom. I never wrote back. Some conversations end not with words, but with understanding. That was 2 years ago. These days, I wake up in my little house, make coffee in my outdated kitchen, and sit in my garden while the sun comes up. I volunteer at the library twice a week. I have dinner with friends. I take trips, small ones, within my budget, but trips to places I want to see. I live within my means, and my means are enough. Sometimes I think about Ryan and Claire. I hope they're happy. I hope they learned something from our experience. I hope they understand now that love isn't measured in dollar amounts, and family isn't about what you can provide, it's about how you're treated when you can't provide anything at all. But mostly, I don't think about them. I think about my next painting class, my next book club selection, what I want to plant in my garden come spring. I think about the life I'm building for myself, one day at a time, one choice at a time. We've decided you're not really family anymore, Grace. That's how this story started. But here's how it ends. I decided they were right. I wasn't their family. I was something much more valuable. I was my own person, finally free to live my own life. And you know what? That life is pretty damn good. What do you think? Have you ever found yourself in a situation where your generosity was taken for granted? Or maybe you've had to set difficult boundaries with family members who saw you more as a resource than as a person? Share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. I read every single one, and your stories often inspire future videos. If this story resonated with you, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more real-life stories about family, relationships, and finding the courage to choose yourself. Until next time, remember, you're worth more than what you can provide for others.